For centuries, men and women have stepped away from the table to fast, to pray, to seek something deeper. But what does a 40-day fast look like today? I'm Dr. Sam and Breanne Fasting, and in this podcast, I invite you to walk with four ordinary people on an extraordinary journey. Welcome back to day 21 of the modern 40-day fast. Today I have a special guest with me, my wife, Breanne Sims, who also did a 40-day fast. And today we're both going to talk about our day 21. On my day 21, couple things. I was going to get labs that day, so I didn't take any meds that day because I wanted to get labs. When I went to the hospital, they weren't doing them that day. So, of course, irony of ironies. That's just how life works is sometimes. I got really emotional that day. I was talking about my kids not breathing at birth and when they graduate with 4.0s. And I mentioned earlier, I was really curious what my hormones were because I thought my estrogen was through the roof, which I found out it was not, my testosterone. So I was emotional, not for hormones, but I was happy to blame it on something like that. That's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to start with, that's because I got emotional. I'm going to start with that, with a verse for that from Nehemiah. So my verse from Nehemiah is Nehemiah 1:4. And when I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. And I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And so what had happened is he had a relative come and he told them that, the exiles in Jerusalem, they're in trouble and disgrace. The walls are broken down. The gates have been burned with fire. He's weeping. He's feeling emotional. He's fasting and praying for days before the God of heaven. We don't know. I don't think we actually know how many days he actually fasted in this situation, but but he was weeping and praying. So very, very emotional. In this reference in Nehemiah, they've been banished, and it talks about kind of like God gave them, in Deuteronomy 30, he said basically, if you don't follow my laws, then these are blessings or curses. And so they're kind of in the curse. In Deuteronomy 30, he talks about he will restore you from captivity and gather you from all the nations. But you need to return to the Lord with all your heart and your soul. That's what he's telling them. And even in verse 10, he says again, you turn to him with all your heart. So turn to God with all your heart. And it's really kind of like, well, how do you do that? And so like sometimes here's Nehemiah, fasting and praying. And because of this promise in Deuteronomy, because they're under this curse, there's this reason why he's doing it. So sometimes you get the answer in someplace else. Like, why did they do that? Why was he fasting and praying? And we get the answer in Joel. In Joel 2:12, the answer is, yet now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, weeping, and mourning. So the way you return to God with all your heart is with actually fasting, weeping, mourning, and praying. That is how do you do that? And how you do that is you do it with fasting. So Nehemiah felt emotional. I felt emotional. So there are lots of biblical references of people feeling emotional.
I would venture to say that anyone who has fasted for an extended period of time has felt emotional, very emotional.
So why do you think that is?
Because I think it strips away some of our physical comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to face more how we're feeling. It makes our emotions a little raw because you know how if you're in a lot of pain, it's physically and emotionally exhausting. And I would say that fasting is a sort of pain that you're going through because you're denying yourself food. And so it leaves you a sort of tired, emotional, and raw. So just like going through any kind of difficulty in your life, it peels back some of the layers so that we're more in touch with our emotions and I think really our spirit and our soul, because we're not focused on the physical. We're much more focused on spiritual and connecting with God and how we're feeling. So I think it's very normal.
And I also think in our culture, you're not able to go run to food.
Yeah.
And you have to there's a reason why you're experiencing, there's so many things you're experiencing during that time. So I want to talk about some research. I may have mentioned this at other times, but I want to specifically talk about this research today because it's day 21, and it's the safety, health improvement, and well-being during a 4 to 21 day fasting period.
Oh, wow. This is a long fasting study.
Yep, long fasting study. They had over 1,422 subjects. They actually were given a daily caloric intake of 200 to 250 calories. So they had fasting fuels, during the 21 days.
Interesting.
They had significant reduction in weight, not surprised, and abdominal circumference, not surprised. Their blood pressure did better. They had better, their lipids were better. All the groups, had better blood glucose levels. They all had high ketone bodies, which means that they switched over to fat energy. So it's called metabolic switching. They switched over to the metabolic switch. Their emotional well-being was increased, the physical and emotional, and the physical well-being, and the absence of hunger was felt in 93% of the people who did it. 93% absent of hunger.
Wow.
It led to an enhancement in emotional and physical well-being and improvements in relative cardiovascular and general risk factors, as well as subjective, like personal health complaints, like things that were like, joints aching and that kind of stuff. And less than 1% of the participants had an adverse effect. So what's the adverse effects they saw? First of all, no one had any permanent health effects. 2 people were hospitalized. One was a 75-year-old man with known coronary artery disease who then went into the hospital. Could have been, the question is, was it because of fasting? We don't know. He has a known history. He had elevation. Would it happen if he didn't fast? We don't know. Another person had nausea and vomiting and diarrhea. There's always this question, is it fasting? Is it not? But these were a 75-year-old male and a 67-year-old woman. But nobody had any permanent, there were no fatalities, and no permanent effects.
So this was a study done on men and women.
Yep. And some of the things were like they had they had low sodium, they had low blood sugar, they had low potassium. So this is why we encourage people in these longer fasts to make sure you get your lab work, because you can supplement these things in.
Right. And why we always recommend multivitamin.
Yep.
So it doesn't say if they were taking any supplements during this.
I believe they were, but we may, each individual will require a different amount of supplementation. So you may find that, we find that in a longer fast that people who get muscle cramps, they need to add a little more magnesium in. And so this is why I recommend, getting your labs done at least every week. If you've done longer fasts, you may know how well your body can tolerate it and how long you can fast without getting your labs. If you're brand new to it, get your baseline labs, maybe even day 3, day 7, and kind of just follow that. So fascinating, healthy, beneficial.
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay. So let's talk about your day 20. Well, actually, it was another day.
It was our day.
It was another
day,
because that was another fast for me that I did with you.
Yes.
And so
this was a ways down the road.
Yes.
That we did a 40-day fast together. My first 40-day fast, your
third.
second, third.
Third.
So,
but we went to Denver. We stayed at a hotel, and so you could do non-food related things. And so we scheduled.
Yes. We scheduled massages exactly halfway through our fast, and I cannot tell you what that meant to me. 3 weeks in of not having any food and, well, just except for fasting fuels or whatever God told me to eat, but just not eating for such a long period of time. I'd never not eaten for that long before, and it was so emotionally and physically just like draining. Like emotionally, it was emotionally very difficult thing to do as a woman, I feel like, especially. But having something to look forward to that wasn't food during that fast was amazing, because I didn't think I was going to make it through a 40-day fast. I really did not think I was going to make it through. But thankfully, God gave me a husband who did a fast with me and knew how hard it was already and encouraged me every day and planned a massage for us halfway through. And I only made it to that fast by God's grace and my husband's support as well. So ladies, if you're thinking about doing something like this, I cannot encourage you enough to find someone to do it with, because it is really hard. I mean, I'm going to be straight about it. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And I would do it all over again, 100%. But it was hard. And being able to go and rest away from things and just rejuvenate and just have time to connect together as a couple was really amazing, because when you're fasting, not only does your hunger for food go down, but your libido goes down too. And so sometimes it's good to find other ways to connect as a married couple when you're fasting together. And so just being able to get away for a little bit and have conversations and pray together and support each other and get a massage and drink sparkling water and sit out on a porch and look at the mountains and just finding other ways to connect was really, really helpful for my heart and for my body, for the rest that I needed and the connection that I needed with my husband. And so that was really important.
And they actually have researched this before we actually didn't have research, but even though the testosterone's up and the estrogen is improved for men and women, they have just found that the libido just drops off. And so they have in the research articles, they found that yes, it does. And they don't necessarily know why it does. I have my own personal theory why it happens, and I'm going to share that. And the reason why I believe it happens is because in the fasted state, if your ancestors if they weren't able to get enough food for themselves, then there isn't enough food for the community to grow. And so I think the libido drops off, because to have children in the fasted state would then make even
make another mouth to feed, and there's no food. And so I think in the fasted state, that's why our libido, men and women, drop off. Now it does come right back, but when you eat,
Of course.
but I think it's just a safety mechanism for a community that you would not bring a child into an area when
Right, if the food was
and
scarce.
there's food scarcity. So
Yeah.
I think that's why that happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfectly normal and natural. So anyway, it's really good on these really long fasts to have something to look forward to that's not food. So I would highly recommend planning something like halfway through or a weekend or a few weeks in or something when you know that you're gonna need that little oomph. Like when you're halfway, it's just like, okay, I still have to go as far as I've already gone, which seems like forever, but also it's amazing to look back how far you've actually come, which is 3 weeks of the most that I've ever fasted before, the longest I've ever fasted before in my life. And once you hit that point, now I know I can go 21 days without food, which means I can finish this fast. Like I know that I can do it.
Right.
So that is just yeah, that blew me away because I didn't think I was going to make it 40 days. I really didn't. And so, yeah, it was just amazing. It was such a joyful day recognizing how much God provided for me and cared for me all of those first 3 weeks. And so I had the assurance and the hope that he was going to do that for the last 3. My heart just really needed that. And he was walking me through like every single difficulty every single day, and so I knew that he was going to do that for the rest of the fast also. And I also needed my husband's support too, so I was super blessed to have 2 incredible support systems, my husband and my heavenly Father, during the fast. So
So I know that maybe it's great to have a support system if you had, and you may not. And so that's what we're here doing this 40-day modern 40-day fast. You can do it with us. We're going through every single day. So you can have this support system that you may not have in your area, but you can have with us online.
the other thing that I would like to say too is that if you're in the middle of a 40-day fast and you're not journaling, you should be. You should be, because it's a sort of once in a lifetime experience that is incredible to go back and look and see what God did for you during that time. It's such a testimony, a testament to my own faith and to my own heart to go back and look where I was when I started the fast spiritually and emotionally, and then where I was even halfway through compared to the end. And all of the lessons and all of the freedom and all of the sort of stripping away of things and surrendering that I did during that fast, it encourages me even today, going back and looking at all of my notes and all the ways that God showed up. It's just something that you don't want to lose track of. Like, I think it's something that you really should be writing down. And the other thing too is that it really helps you process your thoughts and your emotions as you're going through all of it, and it really gives God a chance to speak to you as you're writing. And like he did so many days when I actually started to write it out and have thoughts about what I was going through, I recognized more readily what he was doing and how he was helping me and his provision every single day through that fast. So I think it's an incredible way to bring hope to your fast and listen to what God is saying, because it really makes you quiet your mind and think, and it gives God the opportunity to speak to your heart while you're journaling. So if you're not, I would highly, highly encourage you to journal while you're fasting.
And while you're in it, you kind of feel like I'm never going to forget this, but you do.
Yeah.
But you do. And so it's actually enjoyable for me doing this podcast because I have to go back and reread my notes, and I have different things that were taught to me that sometimes it's like this one was an emotional day, but sometimes there's humor in there. And so there's actually a humorous one coming up on day 33 that I think is actually hilarious that I completely forgot about. So stay tuned for that little teaser for day 23. But there's humor, there's revelations, there's encouragement, and there's building and there's breaking, and it's all for your benefit.
Yeah.
So
And I would say the journaling is sort of a standing stone, a memory that you get to keep forever of the time that you got to spend with God, just like your own little God-centered scrapbook. If you're a scrapbooker and you like memories and photos and stuff, then the journal would definitely be a lifelong keepsake.
yeah, it's gonna be a benefit for you for like Brant said for just forever, for years to come. You can go back and look at it anytime, like, oh yeah, so pull you right back into those days and those emotions, and so
Yeah.
it's very good.
And just God's provision and support and how loving and caring he is for even the smallest details of our lives. It's such a good reminder.
So I want to give you a fasting fuel since we talked about the research and they use fasting fuels. So my different fasting fuel today was I used gut shot. which is a fermented pickle juice. It was 7 calories, and I drank it, and I felt very full afterwards. So
Yeah, I love drinking pickle juice when I'm fasting. Delicious, and it keeps all that. If it's fermented, the good kind, then it keeps all of that beneficial bacteria in your gut too. That needs good support. So it's very good. It also has electrolytes too because it's nice and salty. So
Good.
good choice.
Well, thanks for being here on day 21. We're on the downhill slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And I'll see you tomorrow on day 22.